The emergency beacons screamed across 17 star systems before anyone bothered to listen. By then, of course, it was far too late for the Terran colonial fleet, but not too late for Captain Maya Torres, 23 years old, fresh out of the academy. The youngest captain in human military history, they said. What they didn't say was that she'd also become the last one breathing in less than 6 hours. I am Keth Vor, intelligence analyst of the Hegemony's 3rd Reconnaissance Division. I have studied 14 species military doctrines. I have witnessed the fall of empires. I have calculated the precise moment when civilizations realize they are about to die. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what the humans call Tuesday. The data streams began flooding our sensors at 0347 standard. The Terran fleet, all 37 ships, had engaged the Vorthan armada near the Kepler-40 system. Standard military protocol suggested this would be a brief encounter. The Vorthans commanded over 300 vessels, each one capable of reducing a planet to radioactive dust. The humans, well, they had Captain Torres aboard the light cruiser Defiant. And apparently that was supposed to mean something. It meant everything. Analyst Keth Vor, my superior, Commander Jex Prime, clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among our species. Your assessment of the engagement. I studied the tactical beam, watching red dots representing human ships wink out of existence one by one. The humans will be extinct within the hour, Commander. Their formation is curious, but ultimately futile. How wrong I was. How magnificently, impossibly wrong. The first indication that something had gone sideways came when the human flagship, the massive dreadnought Olympus, suddenly broke formation. Not retreating, mind you. The ship began accelerating directly toward the Vorthan command vessel. No weapons firing, no shields raised, just a 2-kilometer-long battering ram painted with the words "Earth or Bust" along its hull. "Commander," I reported, my voice betraying nothing of the confusion churning in my gut. "The human flagship appears to be attempting suicide." "Predictable," Jex Prime replied. "When faced with inevitable defeat, most species choose death over surrender." The Olympus struck the Vorthan dreadnought at exactly 0.23 light speed. The explosion registered on sensors 3 systems away. When the radiation cleared, both ships had ceased to exist, along with Admiral Harrison, Fleet Commander Sarah Cross, and every other senior officer in the human fleet, except for one impossibly young captain aboard a ship that wasn't supposed to matter. "This is Captain Maya Torres of the Terran vessel Defiant," came the transmission that changed everything. Her voice carried across the void with the kind of steady calm that suggested she either had nerves of steel or was completely insane. "I am now senior officer of the colonial fleet. All remaining ships form up on my position. We are not done here." The tactical display showed the aftermath: 36 human ships destroyed, the Defiant floating alone among the wreckage, against 2 Sixad and Vorthan vessels. The mathematics were laughable. The odds were beyond impossible. The situation was hopeless. Captain Torres opened fire, not at the nearest enemy ship, not at the largest threat. She targeted the Vorthan communications array on the far side of their formation, a shot that required threading her missiles through an asteroid belt while under fire from 40 different directions. She made it. The array exploded in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. "Analyst," Commander Jex Prime's voice carried a note I'd never heard before. "Are you monitoring this correctly?" "Yes, sir. Captain Torres has just blinded the entire Vorthan fleet. They can no longer coordinate their attacks. What happened next defied every military textbook ever written. The Defiant didn't run. It didn't hide. It began hunting. Torres used the asteroid belt like a 3-dimensional maze, her ship darting between rocks the size of moons while Vorthan vessels crashed into each other in their confusion. She'd appear long enough to destroy one ship, then vanish again before return fire could find her. The Vorthans, lacking coordination, began firing at shadows, at asteroids, at each other. "Sir," I reported, watching the display with growing fascination, "the human captain appears to be playing with them." Impossible. One ship cannot defeat an armada. Someone should inform Captain Torres of that fact, sir. 20 minutes into her impossible battle, Torres transmitted again. This time she was actually laughing while dodging plasma cannons that could vaporize a city. Vorthan Fleet Commander, this is Captain Torres. I have a proposition for you. Surrender now, and I will let some of you live. Continue this embarrassment, and I will be forced to get creative. The response came in the form of every remaining Vorthan ship converging on her position. 231 vessels all firing at once. The asteroid belt lit up like a newborn star. When the energy discharge faded, the Defiant was gone. There, Commander Jex Prime settled back in his observation pod. The anomaly has been resolved. One cannot challenge the laws of physics indefinitely. That's when the laughter started again. "Oh, boys," came Torres' voice from somewhere behind the Vorthan formation. "You really shouldn't have done that." The Defiant materialized directly above the Vorthan flagship, close enough that its hull scraped against the alien vessel's armor. At that range, Torres couldn't miss. The flagship's reactor went critical, taking 7 nearby ships with it in a chain reaction that painted the void in nuclear fire. "How?" I whispered, studying the sensor data. "How did she survive that bombardment?" The answer came from our deep space monitoring station. The humans, it seemed, had been holding back a few technological surprises. The Defiant wasn't just a light cruiser, it was a prototype, equipped with something called a quantum displacement drive that allowed it to phase in and out of normal space. Torres had been fighting from another dimension. Vorthan Fleet. Her transmission crackled with static and what sounded suspiciously like popcorn being consumed. "You are down to 233 ships. I'm still at 1. Would you like to recalculate those odds?" What followed was not a battle. It was an education. Captain Torres proceeded to depict exactly why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable warriors. She used the wreckage of destroyed ships as projectiles. She triggered solar flares to blind enemy sensors. She even managed to convince 2 separate Vorthan squadrons that they were attacking each other by spoofing their communication frequencies. By the time the 3rd hour began, the Vorthan fleet was down to 50 ships. Their formation had collapsed. Their commander was screaming orders that nobody could hear, and Captain Torres was giving a running commentary on their tactical failures while simultaneously destroying them. "And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you never bring a knife to a gunfight," she announced after vaporizing 3 ships with a single perfectly placed shot. "Especially when the other person has a really big gun." Analyst Kethvor, Commander Jex Prime's voice had gone very quiet. "What are the current odds of human survival?" I checked the calculations twice, then 3 times. "Sir, statistically speaking, Captain Torres has already won. The remaining Vorthan vessels are scattered across 3 sectors. Their chain of command is broken, and their morale appears to be compromised. Compromised? Several ships are attempting to surrender, sir. The others are fleeing. To a single human vessel, to Captain Maya Torres. Sir, there appears to be a difference." The final act began when Torres broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying across the battlefield like a challenge to the universe itself. "Attention all Vorthan vessels, this is your last chance. I'm going to count to 10. If you are not running by the time I reach 0, I'm going to assume you want to continue this dance. Trust me, you don't want to continue this dance." She began counting. In perfect Vorthan no less. 10. 9. Ships began breaking formation, their crews apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of not being vaporized by a 23-year-old human with a bad attitude and impossibly good aim. 7. 6. 5. More ships fled. The tactical display showed vessels scattering in every direction, their captains finally understanding that they were not fighting a normal battle against a normal opponent. 4. 3. 2. By the time Torres reached 2, only 7 Vorthan ships remained. Their captains apparently had chosen death over the humiliation of fleeing from a single human vessel. Torres honored their choice. 1. The Defiant's main cannon charged with a sound that registered across multiple dimensions. When it fired, the beam didn't just destroy the remaining ships, it carved a line of destruction straight through the asteroid belt, leaving a perfectly straight channel of empty space stretching for 3,000 kilometers. "Zero," Torres announced into the sudden silence. "Class dismissed." And then, in a moment that would be studied by military academics for the next 1,000 years, Captain Maya Torres did something that no sane commander would ever consider. She opened a channel to every intelligence service monitoring the battle, including us. "Hello everyone, I know you are all watching. I know you are all recording this. I know you are all wondering what the hell just happened here." Her voice carried across the void, with the casual confidence of someone who had just rewritten the rules of warfare. "Well, let me save you some time. What happened here is that you just witnessed the birth of a new era. The humans aren't going anywhere. We are not backing down. And if you think what you just saw was impressive, wait until you meet the rest of my species." The transmission cut out. The Defiant vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a debris field that would take archaeologists centuries to catalogue. And in the silence that followed, I realized that everything had changed. "Commander," I reported, my voice barely steady, "I believe we may need to revise our threat assessment of the human species." "From what to what?" "Analyst." I studied the tactical display one more time, watching the aftermath of the impossible. A single human ship had destroyed an entire armada. A 23-year-old captain had rewritten military doctrine while eating snacks and cracking jokes. From negligible to significant, sir. How significant? I paused, considering my words carefully. In my species, accuracy was prized above all else. But sometimes, accuracy demanded understatement. "Very significant, Commander. Very significant indeed." But even as I filed my report, I knew that significant was the wrong word entirely. What I had witnessed wasn't significant. It was the beginning of everything. 3 days after Captain Maya Torres single-handedly rewrote military history, my report landed on the desk of High Command. With all the subtlety of a nuclear warhead, the response was immediate and predictable. Complete denial, followed by demands for verification, followed by the kind of bureaucratic panic that only occurs when someone realizes they have been catastrophically wrong about everything. Analyst Keth Vore, Supreme Commander Vex-9's voice carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. "Your report suggests that a single human vessel destroyed an entire Vorthan armada. This is either the greatest intelligence failure in our history, or you have suffered a complete psychological breakdown." I had prepared for this conversation. In my species, challenging a superior's worldview was typically grounds for immediate reassignment to the outer rim. But sometimes, the truth demanded risks. "Supreme Commander, I have triple verified all data. I have cross-referenced 17 different sensor networks. I have analyzed tactical recordings from 4 separate species who monitored the engagement." The conclusion remains unchanged. Captain Maya Torres achieved the impossible. "Show me." The holographic display materialized between us, showing the Kepler-4 system in perfect 3-dimensional detail. Every ship movement, every explosion, every impossible maneuver was recorded with clinical precision. As the battle unfolded in accelerated time, I watched Vex-9's expression shift from skepticism to confusion to something approaching terror. "Play it again," he commanded. Slower this time. We watched Torres' ship phase in and out of reality 17 times. We saw her use asteroid debris as ammunition. We witnessed her convince enemy ships to attack each other through communication spoofing. Most importantly, we observed the exact moment when the Vorthan fleet commander realized he was not fighting a normal opponent. This human, Vex-9's voice had dropped to a whisper, she was trained for this. "No, sir. According to our intelligence on human military academies, Captain Torres graduated with what they call average marks in tactical command. She specialized in engineering, not warfare." "Then how?" "That, Supreme Commander, is the question that should terrify us all." The answer came 18 hours later, when every major power in the galaxy received the same transmission simultaneously. Not through normal communication channels. Through every screen, every display, every piece of electronic equipment capable of receiving a signal, including the secure networks of military installations that were supposedly impossible to hack. Captain Torres appeared on our screens with the casual confidence of someone dropping by for tea. She was younger than I had expected, with the kind of smile that suggested she knew secrets the rest of the universe hadn't figured out yet. "Hello, Galaxy," she began, settling back in what appeared to be the captain's chair of the Defiant. "I know you are all wondering what happened at Kepler 42. I know you are all trying to figure out how one human ship managed to defeat an entire armada. I know you are all recalculating your threat assessments and wondering if maybe, just maybe, you have been underestimating my species." She paused to take a sip from what looked like coffee. Behind her, the bridge of the Defiant hummed with activity as her crew prepared for whatever came next. "Well, let me save you some trouble. Yes, you have been underestimating us. Bad. The Vorthan fleet wasn't destroyed by superior firepower or advanced technology. It was destroyed by something much more dangerous: human creativity." The transmission shifted to show tactical displays of the battle. But from the human perspective, what we had interpreted as desperate last stands were revealed to be carefully orchestrated strategies. What we had seen as impossible luck was shown to be precise calculation combined with split-second timing. "You see," Torres continued, "while you have all been building bigger guns and stronger shields, we have been asking different questions. Not how do we build a better weapon, but how do we make the enemy's weapons work against them? Not how do we defend against superior numbers, but how do we turn superior numbers into a disadvantage?" She was right, of course. The tactical recordings proved it. Torres hadn't won through brute force. She had won by making the Vorthan fleet into her weapon, turning their coordination systems against them, using their own firepower to destroy their own ships. "But that's not why I'm talking to all of you today," Torres said, her smile shifting into something that made my survival instincts scream warnings. "I'm talking to you because what happened at Kepler 402 was just the warm-up." The display behind her changed, showing star charts of human territory. Red markers appeared at dozens of locations, each one representing a human colony that had been attacked in the past year. The pattern was clear. The galaxy's major powers had been systematically testing human defenses, probing for weaknesses. "You have been hunting us," Torres said, her voice maintaining that casual, almost friendly tone. "One colony at a time, one outpost at a time. You have been trying to find our limits, figure out how much pressure we can take before we break." More data appeared on screen: attack patterns, ship movements, communication intercepts. The humans had been monitoring everything, recording every assault, analyzing every tactical decision made by their enemies. "Well, congratulations, you found our limits." Torres's smile widened. "Turns out, we don't have any." That's when the reports started flooding in from 17 different star systems, from military installations across the galaxy, from the homeworlds of species that had considered themselves untouchable. Human ships, everywhere, all at once, sir. My assistant, junior analyst Kex 2, burst into the command center with the kind of panic that suggested either very good news or very bad news. Given the circumstances, I suspected the latter. "Sir, we are receiving distress calls from everyone." The tactical display expanded to show the entire local cluster. Green dots representing human vessels were appearing throughout known space, not in ones or twos but in fleets. Massive fleets that shouldn't have existed. "Impossible," Supreme Commander Vex 9 stared at the display. "Our intelligence indicates the humans have fewer than 50 operational warships." "Our intelligence was wrong, sir," I replied, watching the impossible unfold in real time. "It appears the human colonial fleet was just the tip of the iceberg." Torres' transmission continued, her voice cutting through the chaos of incoming reports. "For the past 5 years, while you have been picking off our colonies, we have been building, not just ships, but an entire parallel fleet, hidden bases, secret shipyards, technologies you haven't seen yet." She gestured to something off screen. "Meet the Earth Defense Force. 1,000 ships, 10,000 crew members, all of them trained by the best military minds humanity has ever produced. The display showed human vessels emerging from what appeared to be empty space, cloaked ships, decloaking, hidden bases, revealing themselves. Entire fleets that had somehow remained invisible to the galaxy's most advanced sensor networks. How? Vex-9 whispered. The answer came from Torres herself, as if she had heard his question across the void. Stealth technology, borrowed from the Kepler ruins, quantum displacement drives, reverse-engineered from Vorthan wrecks, energy shields adapted from hegemony designs that we definitely didn't steal from your research stations. Her grin was absolutely shameless. Turns out, when you attack our colonies, you leave behind some very interesting wreckage. We are quite good at learning from other people's mistakes. Reports continued flooding in. The Vorthan homeworld was under siege by 30 human vessels. Hegemony border stations were going dark one by one. The Stellar Confederation's entire Third Fleet had been disabled by some kind of computer virus that turned their own weapon systems against them. But this wasn't random destruction. This was surgical, precise, targeted. The humans were hitting military installations while carefully avoiding civilian populations. They were destroying weapons while leaving infrastructure intact. They were demonstrating overwhelming superiority while minimizing casualties. This is what we call speaking softly and carrying a big stick, Torres explained. We tried the speaking softly part for the past decade. You didn't listen. So now we are showing you the stick. Sir, Kextu's voice had gone very quiet. We are receiving a direct transmission. It's addressed to you personally. The display shifted, showing Captain Torres looking directly at the camera. Directly at me. Hello, Analyst Keth 4. Yes. I know your name. I know your rank. I know you have been studying this engagement, trying to figure out how we did it. I know you have been asking the right questions. Her expression grew serious. I also know you are one of the few beings in this galaxy with enough sense to understand what you are really seeing here. How did she know? How could she possibly know who I was, what I was thinking, what reports I had filed? The answer is simple, Torres continued, once again responding to unspoken questions. We have been monitoring your communications for years. We know what every major power thinks of us. We know how you have been planning to divide up human space once you finished picking us apart. We know exactly who has been hunting our people. The implications hit me like a physical blow. If the humans had been monitoring galactic communications, they knew everything, every secret plan, every classified operation, every private conversation between military leaders. But here's the thing. Torres leaned forward, her eyes locked on the camera. We are not interested in conquest. We are not interested in empire building. We are not even particularly interested in revenge, though I admit some of my colleagues have been pushing for it. The display shifted to show human fleets holding position around enemy installations. Not attacking, not advancing, just waiting. What we are interested in is respect, recognition that humanity is not prey, understanding that we will not be hunted, harvested, or treated as a minor inconvenience in your grand designs for galactic dominance. Sir, another analyst burst into the room. We are receiving surrender requests from Vorthan High Command. The Stellar Confederation is requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations. The Klaxon Empire is asking for asylum. Torres nodded, as if she had heard the report. Smart choice. For those civilizations willing to acknowledge humanity as an equal partner in this galaxy, we offer friendship, trade, and cooperation. For those who prefer to continue treating us as prey, she shrugged. Well, you have seen what happens to predators who pick the wrong target. The transmission began to fade, but Torres held up one finger. Oh, and one more thing. To any species, government or individual who thinks this was just a lucky victory by one exceptional captain, let me introduce you to the rest of my graduating class. The display exploded with faces, hundreds of them, young human officers, all roughly Torres' age, all wearing the same confident smile, all looking directly at the camera with eyes that suggested they knew secrets the rest of the galaxy hadn't figured out yet. Meet the Earth Defense Force Officer Corps, class of. Every single one of them graduated with what our academy calls average marks. Every single one of them commands a ship capable of doing exactly what I did at Kepler 442. The faces disappeared, replaced by Torres alone. Sleep well, galaxy. We will be watching. The transmission ended, leaving behind a silence that felt like the calm before a storm. Analyst Keth 4, Supreme Commander Vex 9's voice carried the weight of a civilization suddenly realizing it was no longer at the top of the food chain. Your new threat assessment of the human species. I looked at the tactical display, showing human fleets positioned throughout known space. I thought about Captain Torres, 23 years old, and already the most dangerous military commander in the galaxy. I considered the implications of a species that could hide an entire war fleet while appearing helpless and vulnerable. Supreme Commander, I said carefully, I recommend we revise our classification of humanity from developing species to galactic superpower. Immediately, and their threat level. I paused, considering my words. In the intelligence service, accuracy was everything. But sometimes, accuracy demanded admitting when you had been catastrophically wrong about everything. Maximum, sir. Absolute maximum. And as reports continued flooding in from across the galaxy, as human ships maintained their positions around major installations, as the entire balance of galactic power shifted in the span of a single day, I realized that Captain Maya Torres had achieved something far more significant than destroying a Vorthan armada. She had taught the galaxy to fear humanity, but more importantly, she had taught the galaxy to respect us. The age of hunting humans was over. The age of reckoning with them had just begun. And somewhere in the depths of space, aboard a ship called the Defiant, the youngest captain in fleet history was probably eating popcorn and planning her next impossible victory. But Captain Torres wasn't finished with her lessons. Analyst Keth Vor came a private transmission directly to my workstation. My superior officers couldn't hear it. My colleagues couldn't intercept it. Somehow Torres had established a secure channel directly to me. I believe you and I need to have a conversation. Before I could respond, my console displayed coordinates, a location in neutral space, equidistant from all major powers, a meeting point. Sir, I addressed Supreme Commander Vex 9. I'm receiving a request for diplomatic contact. From Captain Torres herself. Absolutely not. We do not negotiate with terrorists. With respect, sir, I don't believe the humans are terrorists anymore. I believe they are the new dominant power in this sector, and they are offering to talk instead of simply destroying us. The weight of that statement settled over the command center, like gravity suddenly doubling. Through our tactical displays, we could see human fleets maintaining position around every major military installation in the galaxy. They had demonstrated the capability to strike anywhere, at any time. The fact that they were choosing conversation over conquest said something significant about their intentions. Very well, Vex 9 decided after a long pause. Take a diplomatic vessel, find out what they want. 2 days later, I found myself aboard the hegemony diplomatic ship Concordance, approaching the coordinates Torres had provided. What I found there defied every expectation I had developed about human military operations. The Defiant hung in space like a work of art. Up close, the ship was smaller than I had imagined, but somehow more impressive. Its hull showed scars from the battle at Kepler 442, but those scars had been turned into decorative patterns, battle damage transformed into beauty marks. Hegemony vessel Concordance. Torres' voice carried the same casual confidence I had heard in her broadcasts. You are cleared to dock. Bay 2 is open and pressurized for your atmospheric requirements. The docking bay was a revelation. Clean, efficient, and decorated with what appeared to be artwork created from wreckage of destroyed enemy ships. A twisted piece of Vorthan armor had been turned into a sculpture. Fragments of weapon systems had become a mosaic on the bulkhead. Captain Torres met me at the airlock herself. No honor guard, no security detail, just a young human woman wearing a uniform that looked like it had been pressed 5 minutes ago. She was smaller than I had expected, barely reaching my shoulder, but her presence filled the room. Analyst Keth Vor. She extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you for coming. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of having some refreshments prepared. The conference room she led me to was unlike any military briefing space I had ever seen. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, and a table laden with foods from a dozen different species, including, I noticed with surprise, several delicacies from my own homeworld. You seem surprised, Torres observed, settling into her chair with the easy grace of someone completely comfortable with their own power. Most species assume that military prowess requires sacrificing everything else. We have found that good food and comfortable surroundings actually improve strategic thinking. Captain Torres, I began carefully, my superiors are wondering what terms humanity intends to impose. Terms? She looked genuinely confused. I'm not here to impose anything, analyst. I'm here to offer you a job. I beg your pardon? You are wasted in the Hegemony Intelligence Service, Torres said bluntly. Your analysis of the Kepler-42 engagement was the most accurate assessment filed by any intelligence agency. You understood what you were seeing when everyone else was still trying to deny reality. That kind of analytical capability is exactly what humanity needs as we expand our role in galactic affairs. I stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. You want to recruit me? I want to recruit your entire department. Maybe your entire service, if they are smart enough to accept. Torres leaned forward, her expression becoming serious. Keth Vor, the galaxy is changing. The old power structures, the old ways of doing things, they are not sustainable anymore. Too much corruption, too much waste, too much time spent on internal politics instead of external threats. She gestured to a display that materialized in the air between us, showing star charts I had never seen before. Do you know what's out there, beyond the rim, beyond the boundaries of what we call known space? I studied the charts, noting markers for phenomena that didn't match any classification system I was familiar with. These readings, they are not possible. They are not just possible, they are incoming. We estimate 18 months, maybe 2 years before first contact. And when it happens, this galaxy is going to need every advantage it can get. The display shifted, showing massive structures moving through deep space. Not ships, exactly, but something far larger and more complex. Something that made our largest dreadnoughts look like shuttlecraft. The Devourers, Torres said quietly. That's what we call them. We have been tracking their approach for the past 3 years. They are not interested in conquest or negotiation. They consume entire star systems, strip them down to raw materials, and move on. How do you know this? Because we have been further out than anyone else. While your people and the Vorthans and the Stellar Confederation have been fighting over scraps of territory, we have been exploring, learning, preparing. The implications were staggering. If Torres was telling the truth, every recent conflict, every territorial dispute, every power struggle in the galaxy had been meaningless. We had been arguing over dinner arrangements while the house burned down around us. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why not your superiors? Why not our governments? Torres smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Because your governments would try to use the information for political advantage. They'd try to figure out how to profit from the crisis, or how to position themselves as the sole defenders of galactic civilization. We don't have time for that kind of nonsense. She was right, of course. The hegemony's first response to any crisis was to determine how it could be leveraged for political gain. The Vorthans would demand territorial concessions in exchange for their military support. The Stellar Confederation would tie any assistance to trade agreements. So, what do you propose? A new model, Torres said simply. Not a human empire, not Earth dominating the galaxy. A true coalition. The best minds from every species, working together, sharing resources and information, making decisions based on what's best for everyone, not what's best for any single power block. And if our governments refuse to cooperate, Torres' smile turned predatory. then we will work around them. You have seen what one human captain can accomplish with limited resources. Imagine what we could do with the right people, regardless of their species or political affiliation. Over the next 4 hours, Torres laid out a vision that was both terrifying and inspiring. Shadow organization of the galaxy's best and brightest, operating outside traditional power structures. Scientists sharing breakthrough discoveries across CCS lines. Military officers coordinating defense strategies without waiting for political approval. Intelligence analysts pooling their resources to track the approaching threat. This is treason, I pointed out. This is survival, Torres replied. Your choice, analyst. You can go back to filing reports that your superiors will ignore while they argue about jurisdiction, or you can help us save the galaxy. When I returned to hegemony space 12 hours later, I carried with me data packets that would fundamentally change how we understood our place in the universe. Proof of the approaching threat, evidence of technologies that could revolutionize defense capabilities. And most importantly, contact protocols for a network that was already forming across species lines. What did they want? Supreme Commander Vex 9 demanded the moment I entered his office. They want to save us all, sir. The question is whether we are smart enough to let them. 6 months later, when the first Devourer scout ships were detected at the galactic rim, the response was unlike anything in recorded history. Human vessels appeared alongside hegemony cruisers, Vorthan dreadnoughts coordinated with Stellar Confederation carriers. Former enemies worked side by side, their tactical systems linked by protocols that Captain Torres' network had developed in secret. The first engagement lasted 17 minutes. The Devourer scouts, each one the size of a small moon, were destroyed by coordinated strikes from over 400 ships representing 12 different species. Not one Allied vessel was lost. How? Supreme Commander Vex 9 asked, as we reviewed the tactical recordings. Preparation, sir, and leadership that thinks beyond traditional boundaries. On the main display, Captain Torres' face appeared as she addressed the combined fleet. Well done, everyone. That was just the opening act. Long-range sensors show the main force is still 18 months out. I suggest we use that time wisely. And as reports came in from across the galaxy of species that had never cooperated before working together on defense preparations, I realized that Torres had achieved something even more impressive than defeating the Vorthan armada. She had united the galaxy, not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstrated competence and the simple recognition that some threats were too large for any single species to face alone. The youngest captain in fleet history had become something far more significant. The architect of galactic civilization's survival. And somewhere in the depths of space, aboard ships that flew under no single flag but fought for everyone's future, human officers continued to rewrite the rules of what was possible. The galaxy would never be the same, but for the first time in centuries, it had a chance to remain the galaxy at all.